welcome to CIO News. I am Khushbu Soni, your host for the broadcast and chief editor at CIO News. This is our exclusive interview series on the topic of digital innovators of India, an exclusive interview series with the CIOs and CTOs. It is a recorded session and will be available on our website, that is cionews.co.in, and our CIO News LinkedIn handle. It is my pleasure to invite our guest for today. We have Mr. Indradyumna, the Group Chief Digital Officer from Jindal Steel and Power Limited. Mr. Datta has more than 2 decades of working experience in IT and digital technologies, IT/OT integrated applications, and industrial automated related solutions. At present, Mr. Datta is the Group CDO for Jindal Steel and Power, looking after the IT and digital functions across the locations. He has been through the entire product and solution lifecycle in various capacities in different organizations such as GSP, Crane, Vedanta, Honeywell, and Haldia Haldia Petrochemicals Limited. In his current role at GSP, he's responsible for designing the technology strategy aligned with business processes of mining and steel industry. He's also very keen on spreading the culture of innovation, holding a patent granted by USPTO, an evangelist for digitalization in various forums. He is an Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore alumnus. So, sir, great to have you today on this platform, and it is a pleasure to share this platform with you and learn from your journey.
Thanks, Khushbu, and it's also my pleasure to be in this platform. And happy to share some of our experiences at JSP as well as from my previous organizations, and looking forward to this interview. Thank you.
Awesome. Great. I'm also accompanied by Mr. Arvind Kakru, the director at Rockwell Automation India. Mr. Kakru leads the end user, OEM, EPC, and industry business segments for Rockwell Automation in India and South Asia. He's responsible for executing the country's strategy to achieve sales for all the segments by industry verticals, region, and business units. Arvind, pleasure to have you again on this episode.
Thank you, Khushbu. Likewise, and nice to interact with Mr. Datta today.
Great. So to begin with, we all are aware of the brand JSP, Jindal Steel and Power. But Mr. Datta, it will be great to hear it from you. If you can give us a quick brief about Jindal Steel and Power to begin.
Right. So we have interest in steel and power as well as in mining. We have huge presence in Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and Jharkhand. In Chhattisgarh, we have our mother plant from where we have started our journey in early 90s. That's at Raigarh. So we have almost 3.6 million tons per annum capacity there. Multiple mills are there which are producing the finished products like your plate mills, rail mills, and beam and structure mills. And the largest of the facilities are at Odisha at Angul location, where we have a capacity of 6 million tons per annum. And we have a growth trajectory very well sorted out. So we want to increase our capacity from 6 million tons at Angul, doubling it up to almost 12 million tons. So at present, if you see our capacity putting together all the locations comes around 9 to 9.6 million tons, which will be going to close to 15 plus million tons in next couple of years. So that's the growth path that we have put up for JSP. And on the mine side, we have interest in iron ore mines, coal mines. We have also pellet plant, and we have multiple structured steel divisions. So all across the eastern part of India in these three states. And we have a huge power plant in Tamnar, which is almost generating 3,400 megawatt of power. So that's a brief introduction about JSP. And digital is actually one of the key enabler in JSP. So, I have assumed this role a couple of months back, and I'm very excited that the leadership here are very keen to mature the digital abilities and the capabilities that we have as an organization. And the vision is clearly set, and we are all aligned to make that vision really put into a roadmap and then deliver as multiple use cases and transformation journey that we will go through in recent months and in recent future. So that's a brief intro about JSP and the digital transformation journey that we have set for.
Awesome, awesome. Great. I think it's good to hear from you about JSP. So, as you mentioned that you are on the journey of transformation, and there is a vision that is being defined. So, if you can throw some light on the strategy of transformation that JSP has, and how are you enabling that to become the digital innovator in the steel and power and mining industries, to be specific.
Right. So if you see here, we have defined the KPIs, what we want to really impact. So we really want to improve our production. We have to reduce and optimize the cost. These are always the goals and the business KPIs that digital wants to enable. But apart from that, there are a few other areas digital really wants to make an impact. So those are the ease of doing business and the employee productivity, because these two are very closely knitted. Because if I make my employees, my colleagues more efficient and productive, automatically some of the business processes becomes smooth, right? Or vice versa. If you make the business processes automated and smooth, then the productivity improves. So that is also one of the goals and KPIs. The other two are very important, often missed. Is one is on the safety side. So the health, safety, and environment is very important for JSP. So safety always comes first. And many of our digital transformation use cases will be focused towards that area. And last but not the least is the sustainability goals, right? So how can we make the production processes more energy efficient? How can we make a greener steel? How can we reduce our carbon footprint? So that will be one of our key focus areas. Now, having said the goals and the KPIs, we have broadly transform these goals and KPIs to multiple areas throughout the value chain of the mining to iron making, to steel making, to mills, and the logistics part of the whole value chain of the mining to steel industry. And then we have started churning out multiple use cases. So the major idea here is like we are not confined to a particular area of the operations or the functions. So when I'm talking about the functions, it could be your HR function, finance function, quality function, procurement function. So many of the organizations tend to get stuck into one of the functions or one of the operation areas. But for us, digital is across the functions, across the value chain, and that's how we want to make JSP as a very digitally matured organization.
Awesome, awesome. And sir, you've been at a leadership level of being a chief digital officer, for such a large group. So, if you can share, what are the top success criteria, to build a digital transformed organization?
I think the first thing is like to have understanding about the business processes. Coming from the IT and digital background, we have the tools, the softwares, the applications. But then sometimes what happens is like we want to force feed those tools and applications to the business. But it should be the other way around. Like if we understand the business problems first, the business needs first, and then try to map those requirements with the tools and the software technologies, then the things run much smoother. The second aspect is like you have to have an outside in perspective. So what the industry majors are doing, what are the best practices we might be missing. So we have to have that kind of outside in perspective. And that's where the consultants, the OEMs like Rockwell help us in going through the journey, right?
Right.
And the next part is about the whole structure of the digital organization. How do you want to put that structure? The competencies that you want to build, then the technologies that we want to choose, the platforms, because technology and platforms need to align with the use cases which are coming from the business problem understanding as well as the outside in perspective, because these two will tell you that what are the things to be done, but how to do it. You need people, you need process, you need technology. So these all the things, if you tie it in a single way, then the things gets driven in a better way. And at the end, you have to have a proper governance mechanism. You have to have a good project management and delivery capabilities, whether it is in-house or whether it is outsourced. So those are the things will be able to deliver the solution. But then the most important part is like whether the values are really getting utilized. Because let's say we have done everything, the solution is getting delivered, but ultimately the users are not happy with the solution, or there is some scope of improvement. The value is really not getting realized. So you need to have a mechanism to get that feedback and complete that loop so that the business applications that you have delivered are making an impact on the business, and not only the impact on the business, but it is actually impacting those 5 KPIs what I have told earlier, whether it is impacting your top line or cost optimization, or maybe some tons of carbon emissions reduction, or maybe your LTI reduction. So these are the KPIs which will be ultimately tied back with those use cases which you have delivered. And if you can measure it, then the whole loop gets completed. So that's the structure, in my opinion, works well, and it has worked. So I'm sure in JSP also we will be able to make that change.
Awesome, awesome. On that, Arvind, if you can also share your insights while you've been interacting with a lot of CIOs and CDOs. What are the typical challenges that you've heard from them, and also how Rockwell is helping, for the same, and also in the area of steel, power, and mining industries to be specific as well.
Sure, Khushbu. So I'll pick up from where Mr. Datta left, and which was on actually execution, which was on possibly return of investment, because that is where possibly the business would spend money, what is delivering for them, and ultimately did the technology get utilized fully or not. So I would say while the investments in smart manufacturing are growing, but many projects fail to see the successful implementation. The strength of technology that companies are focusing on today doesn't lie in the technologies individually, but the value stems from how companies integrate the technology to transform the business and how it's made to work. Now, he talked about a few things, that are critical, which is like improving productivity, optimizing energy for consumption, sustainability is a big thing, overall operational excellence, supply chain agility, those kind of things are really important. But I think the biggest things, that possibly come from is, how do you kind of make your assets perform at the peak performance? How do they enhance the operational efficiency? How modern technologies can keep the assets online and keep them operating well, which is going to the next level. How do you kind of predict equipment failure for most critical assets before actual downtime occurs, and how do you improve the quality by reducing variability in the process and the equipment performance? That's one more thing possibly to kind of look at and address overall operational inefficiencies, through smart manufacturing. I think these are really critical things, from just a metals, kind of perspective. If I look at mining, possibly if you look at enhancing the operational efficiency, because the productivity is really critical, for mining operations. How do you optimize the operations with advanced process functionalities? How do you predict failures and recover from downtime much quicker, with intelligent assets, those kind of things, right? And how do you also improve the decision making, with mining operations management and those kind of things? There are also examples when particular I think sections of the plant, have been, kind of given different digital technologies. There are different use cases that have been deployed, and there are inefficiencies also, which may not be respect to the process, but could be with respect to the actual operations of a particular plant or a manufacturing unit. I think those things are really critical. If you look at power also, how do you kind of get the efficiency better? How does the output increase by a fraction of a percent, half a percentage, also is good enough. A lot of times, if you are able to do that, how do you reduce the downtimes? So those kind of things are really, really critical. And I would also bring in an element of convergence of IT and OT. How do you ensure secure operations, and improve productivity with converged network architecture? That is also critical, which is to look at your operational network and look at your IT network and create an environment of real-time issue resolution and ensure that the downtime is very less. And final element possibly could be related to cybersecurity, which is when you have so much of connectivity, so much of data, and so much of dependency on all of those things, it's very critical to ensure that you have all the networks secure and you have a proper cyber compliant program in place, or a vision in place, and the execution in place.
Right, absolutely. On that, my next question is for you, Mr. Datta. So, which technologies, according to you, will bring in more resilience and also help in the transformation journey? So, any top technologies that you're considering in the near future, or you think will bring in more resilience, especially post-COVID?
Yeah, I think first of all, I hope we have passed that stage, and good to see when Arvind is taking the call from his office. So I hope we are not going back to that situation where we have to have our thinking hat put on, that how we will support everything remotely. But that has become a kind of a norm, and the expectation is like, so some of these operations can be handled remotely, maybe in a more automated way, and people will be focusing on more value-added work, right? So that's the direction we are moving. And coming back to the technologies, if you see, so all the technologies which has been enabled through this industry 4.0 revolution, whether it is your artificial intelligence, machine learning. In machine learning, both your supervised learning as well as unsupervised learning, and the cloud technologies. So we are slowly moving into the paradigm of as a service model, right? And so I was part of a panel recently where people are talking about not only infrastructure as a service or platform as a service or a software as a service. They are calling it XaaS. So everything as a service. So X stands for anything and everything. So that's the paradigm we are moving. So what's the crux here is that what we want to do, right? So let's say three of us in this Zoom call. Do we want to manage the Zoom application? No. Do we want to buy the license, buy the AMC of Zoom? Maybe no. So we are just interested in having a collaborative platform. That is the objective. So it's a very raw example, but if you extend this to your critical business goals, then what is your objective? And you just get that as a service. And forget about all the underlying uh, technologies or things which will be handled by a partner, correct? So that's where the whole world is moving. And that's why I call it as Shabash. So Shabash stands for software benefit as a service. So I am taking a role of CDO here, CIO here, but then right, when a partner comes to me and say that you buy this platform, I say that what's the benefit? You give me the benefit, I'm ready to invest in it. And Arvind was talking about ROI, so that discussion goes to that point of ROI. So apart from that, the machine learning, artificial intelligence, cloud, definitely the very IoT gateways and different ways how we connect the edge devices to our cloud and network, that is going to be an important part. Blockchain is also keeping up pace, but it is not that widely accepted or implemented, but there are multiple use cases that also can be pulled in through that technology as well. So these are kind of things which are coming to my mind, and definitely the traditional IT stuff is not going anywhere. So we will be working on that, but those things are becoming more and more commodities, right? So the people want to just have those things running as it is. All the lights on kind of activities should happen, and then how IT and digital bring more value on the table in terms of enabling business. So that's it.
Sure. Awesome. Awesome. Arvind, if you can throw some light, what are the best practices organizations can look at when evaluating technology partners?
Yeah, so I think I will pick up some of the pieces that Mr. Datta kind of left on the table, or some of the thoughts that he had on the subject. So I think the operations, that possibly exist there, from metals, mining, power, offsites utility perspective, even energy consumption reduction, and so on and so forth, right? It requires technologies that could vary from, say, manufacturing, execution systems, to advanced analytics, to model predictive controls, to AR, VR, and things like that. I talked about cyber. So I think most critical element possibly is technology, right? How deep your technology is, what kind of offerings that you have, and how much can you possibly serve as an integrated offering to a very large extent, although they could be independent based on the use cases and things like that. But the more integrated the partners are with the manufacturing company, the easier it is, and it's a larger, I would say, relationship that carries over a period of time. There's a skin in the game sometimes. People also commit to performance linked incentives, as an example, or how they kind of commit to certain things that they would deliver as being more efficient operations, and how do they kind of link it up with what has to be done from a supplier or an OEM perspective. I think domain expertise that way also becomes very important, because people should know what they're talking about, and every industry has got its own dynamics, own levers. And most of the digital solutions that we actually talk about, they have less to do with, and they have to some extent to do with like the digital software domain also, but it cannot be deployed till you actually have a good handle on the industry or the application. Those kind of things are really important. I think that also should be factored in. How many people, what kind of localized base. I think there are a lot of companies in digital space, right, from startups to very big technology companies who operate in that space. The real kind of breadth and depth of those companies is vast, like enormous. So I think people have to kind of selectively look at, what is very applicable to them, how people could help in that space, how much of long-term commitment do they have, because in a widely distributed manufacturing environment, like a big corporate, I think there could be much larger assets to kind of tackle. There could be larger manufacturing sites, different types of applications. So that complexity, that domain expertise, that service expertise, that presence to a very large extent is very important as well, in my view.
Absolutely, absolutely. Great conversation so far. My one last question is for you, Mr. Datta. If you can share, certain best practices or learnings in your journey for the CIOs, who are viewing this episode. So, any, couple of points, maybe if you can share do's and don'ts.
I think so. One point is very important during my tenure as CDIO, which I have experienced, is the whole change management part.
Yeah.
So we are into manufacturing industry, and the maturity of different organizations, even within the same organization, different locations, and even within the same locations, different people. So it varies. So if you want to make any digital intervention successful, I think we need to have the business buy-in and the business users buy-in. So it has to be a mix of your top-down approach as well as bottoms-up approach. It is very easy to identify the technology. It is very easy to perhaps implement the solution. Not so easy, as I'm saying, it's definitely difficult, but I'm saying compared to managing the change and managing the new implementations, how you are driving in that organization is very important. And without the business users buy-in, this is not going to be successful. I've seen in multiple cases where perhaps the use cases might not get adopted because the business users not part of the journey as early they should have been. So if you start from the very requirement collection, that okay, what are the problems we are going to solve? This is the solution we are thinking. This is how the deployment will happen. You put it into kind of sprints and then start building that solution. And then keep on checking with the business user that is this a way, is this what you are looking for? Then the thing gets adopted very easily. And it is an inherent process. Then it is not like something is getting pushed from outside. So that change management is very important. Stakeholder management is very important. And I think the whole governance process, the way these things are getting managed is very important. And I'm sure many of my colleagues are doing it, but if 2 cents from my side is going to help any one of them, this will be my advice.
Wonderful. Very correctly mentioned on these points. I think these are some of the points we've been hearing talked about by the CIOs: change management, is very, very important in this dynamic environment that we're living. Great conversation with you both, Mr. Datta and Arvind. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode and sharing all your valuable insights with us. It was a pleasure to host you both and look forward to having many more interactions in the future.
Thanks, Khushbu, and thanks, Arvind. You too have a great.
Thanks, Khushbu. Thanks for having me, and it was great to interact with you, Mr. Datta.
Same here.